1935, the Lions win the NFL Championship. The Detroit Tigers take the World Series. The Red Wings bring home Lord Stanley's Cup. Joe Louis begins his rise to world domination. This transforms the Motor City into Detroit, City of Champions.
Crack of the bat, Detroit City of Champions. It has felt like the City of Champions for the last several weeks. The last 3 weeks have been electric. And today we got a Champions hangover.
Yeah, today was a brutal day.
So listen whenever, wherever, however, but today is the day after the Lions were defeated
in the NFC Championship.
Yeah, by just a couple of points, a couple of crazy plays, and there's a big hangover. But the city's still excited. And
yes, but that doesn't tell the whole story of how like devastating it was.
It's just some crazy plays and
it was brutal.
It's a lot of shoulda, woulda, couldas, and just something bounces off of somebody's helmet and they grab it. It's just a fumble in a short yardage, and then just it's all these little things that
and then there's like
just little ridiculous things that It was a great game. The first half of the game,
the first half was like the greatest half of Lions football I've ever experienced.
I was calling my travel agent. I'm like, how much can I get some Vegas accommodations? And kind of,
it was amazing.
And then by the end of the third quarter, I'm like, hold up on them tickets a little bit.
Yeah.
It went a little
like the first touchdown by Jamison Williams. Like they're like tearing his shirt off as he's like running into the end zone. It was like one of the most amazing runs. I was.
And the third quarter was just a nightmare. Of there was just some bad stuff that happened and just oddities, just of sports oddities of the ball has its own damn mind. It does its own damn thing.
Yeah. It
was a combination of bad stuff.
And this is what we're talking about.
And oddities.
And what we're talking about right now, we're not just talking. We're leading up towards something.
Today, we touched on this.
We're going to be talking about as the sort of the title shows, a historical precedent for success in the one of the big things that came out of the game, especially this morning, was this wasn't like a normal. I mean, if there's a normal loss in the NFC Championship game, but the one of the elements of the hangover has been the second guessing of Dan Campbell's decisions. That's like really the
Monday morning quarterback.
Yes, that's been like the big topic that everybody is like weighing in on. Is there in the way I see it is there's three major sort of complaints or issues that people are like, everybody's talking about one of the three. And the first two are him choosing to go for it instead of take the field goal.
Twice.
And
one of them. And one of them would.
Yes. And the final one was the call at the end of the game where basically they were driving down. They had to get two scores. They drove all the way down the field very quickly. And then there was like the way that the clock was set up was that they had to score and keep their 3 timeouts if they wanted to basically prevent you have any chance of getting the ball back normally.
Yeah.
And instead they tried to run the ball and they had to burn a timeout to stop the clock, which then basically made it so that all they could do was get the onside kick, which is like a barely over 1% chance to get.
So you're saying there's a chance?
Yeah, very minuscule chance. So a lot of people are saying that was the worst. Was that it was the deciding to go for it and to run the ball, which may force them.
But people are critical. There's he shouldn't have done that, and he shouldn't have went for it on fourth. And it's like, but here's my argument with that is what got them to that final game. That is the type of play that they did. That was the style of coaching, the style of aggressiveness, and the philosophy that got them there.
Well, that's true.
So why change it at the 12th hour?
So here's the thing.
So I don't criticize him.
Here's the thing is, I will admit,
I wish he'd gone for the kick, but I don't criticize.
Well, here's the thing is in the moment, I was actually shouting at my screen, "Kick the field goal,
the damn field goal."
Because I will say it, and I will say it like this: in the moment. At the time, and even this morning when I woke up, but that never changed for me. It was like at the time coming out of the half, the Lions had a 17-point lead. And then the 49ers kicked the field goal. They drove down the field. They kicked the field goal. And my mentality was because the Lions came back down, they drove far enough where they had a shot at I think it was like a 48-yard field goal.
And our kicker's solid.
He's all right.
He's solid. He's good.
But the actual statistics
it's not phenomenal.
Yes. So. But the thing about it is,
I would have trusted him.
But the thing about it was that was that if the Lions could have got a field goal, then it would have neutralized that field goal that the 49ers had. The Lions would have been a 3-possession game, 3-score game.
Right,
so it would have meant that like basically it just basically neutralized everything the 49ers did. And so even if like some crazy thing happened where 49ers drove back down the field and got a touchdown, the Lions are still up by 10 points.
Yeah.
And then they would have had, so the point, so that's where I was in that moment.
Yeah.
I was like, what are you doing? Take the field goal for God's sake. I know I love the aggression too, but get the field goal.
But that's how they got there.
No, listen to me. I'm trying to explain.
How's it going to change?
So I get it. Listen,
I'm 100% with you.
No, so anyways, so that was where I was last night, and I woke up this morning feeling the exact same way. I'm like, why don't you take the points, man? Take the, like this. And the sad thing, and then I watched. So I watched like YouTube and like I watched the press conference. I watched all this stuff, play reactions, all this stuff, like all day. Like all YouTube reactions, all this different stuff, like all day.
Social media is just flooded with all
sorts
sorts
crazy.
of
It's crazy. The heat he's taking is crazy.
And then things that I think are poorly attributed, misattributed. It's weird.
Yeah, there's all kinds of quotes. People are saying that.
He said.
Yeah,
so
like, but the thing
I'd like
about
to hear the whole context of what he's.
So anyways, like, I mean, it was like that's where I was when I woke up this morning.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, like I'm at the mall all day. I work this Inspired Marketplace. That's where I sell my books and get to work on my projects in the store all day. And every single person that came in the store today, like I wasn't sitting there wearing a Lions jersey. I was just sitting there. I don't have like a football hat on or anything. I'm just like a guy sitting there. And every single person that came in the store today was like, "Did you see that Lions game last night?" Like every single person. I
talked about it in every one of my classes today.
In
high school. And at least we touched on it in every class.
It was the last week and a half. The whole year I've been following this Lions team, especially this particular team, since Dan Campbell's press conference like 3 years ago. But it's been like the last week and a half. I've never seen the electricity in the air.
There's been so many things about Dan Campbell that is so reminiscent about the City of Champions a year.
Yeah.
And so like when the Tigers, when Mickey came in and said, "No, we're going to the World Series."
That was just it. That's a great point.
Campbell comes in, he goes, "We're biting off kneecaps.
Yeah.
We're going to be contenders."
Exactly.
And everybody's like, "Dan, you're in Detroit, right?
Yeah.
You know where you just took your job, right?"
Exactly.
He's like, "No, screw that. We're biting kneecaps and we're going."
And that you're exactly correct. That is the same sort of reaction that Mickey got, where Mickey was saying, "You're like, exactly
we're going."
Correct. Yeah, that was the exact same, like the reaction by fans and media at the time when Mickey, like they didn't even initially print what he said because it sounded so ridiculous. They didn't want to make their manager feel so bad. And so yeah, it was the same kind of reaction where they're like, "Mickey, you do know where you're at, right? The Tigers have never won anything, and we're a second division team, and you didn't get any players except for yourself." And he's like, "You don't even know how to win. I'm going to show you how to win, which is to believe you can do it."
Right.
It's the same kind of mentality. You're absolutely correct with the same mentality as Campbell has. We're going at him.
So this is what I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to his first press conference during training preseason next year.
Yeah.
What is his biting kneecaps? What is his prediction for the season going to be
thing is,
in that opening, in his opening thing next year, in parallel to Mickey? Because Mickey was like, "We're going to go to the World Series." And they did.
He's like, "Now
we're going to win."
Yeah.
And then the next year, he's like,
"We're going to win."
Well, all right, Mickey, what about this year? He's like, "We're going to win it, dang it."
Yeah.
And that was 1935, baby.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I was listening. So last night, of course, I'm listening to the press conference with Dan Campbell, and he says, they're like, "Do you regret your 4th down attempts? Do you regret those?" And he said, "No. Are you kidding me? No." And they're like, "You're about the only one that thinks that you shouldn't have, like everybody else in the entire media landscape is all going, what the hell is he doing?" Like all day I was listening to the biggest name show hosts all talk, even guys that are like Lions fans. They're like, "What was he doing? What is he thinking?" And Campbell's like going, "What?" It's almost like he was like kind of surprised to get that question. He's like, "What do you mean? No." It's like you're going, "Are you sure?" They're like, "You sure about that?" Like everybody else in the world is saying you should have gone for it. And he's like, "No." And then they interviewed Jared Goff too, the quarterback. And he's like, they're asking him, and he's like, "No, what do you mean?" Like he's like almost like can't even believe that they asked him either. Like he's like, "No, of course not." We're like, he's like, that's
this is what we do. Yeah.
Why, like that's how we got here. Like, why would we not do that?
Yep.
And they're like,
all right.
going, yeah, well, can you maybe change this one time?
Nope.
They're like, no, why would we do that? Like that's what I'm saying. Like, it's like it's so anyways, I had a lot to sort of process because as I said, like watching the game, and then this morning, and the thing is like, I love Dan Campbell.
Yeah.
I love him. Yeah. I love this Lions team as much or more than I've loved any other sports team in my life.
Yeah.
And that, like, I'm going all the way back to 35. I love this team too.
Yeah.
But this Lions team is right in front of me, and I'm watching it. Like, I don't know what's going to happen next. And it's like amazing. I love watching.
There's a lot of young guys doing some really cool stuff.
Yeah, it's like reminiscent of 2004, like the lead up to the 2004 Pistons championship.
Yeah, some young dudes.
They got closer and closer and closer. And I love that 2004 Pistons team. Like, that team was like one of my favorite teams of all time. You know, same thing. And so, like, that's what I'm saying. So, like, the conflict within me that last night and this morning, that's why it was like gut wrenching, man, because it's like, I'm like, I love Dan Campbell and I trust what he's doing, but I'm like, God, what are you doing? Like, I should have had that last night. Right. So that was my conflict this morning, because I'm like, I can't be mad at the guy. And I love him and I love with this team and I love the going for it and stuff like that. Right.
And there's a story from the Champions.
Yes,
story
and so I started thinking, this is what triggered me.
Yeah,
this is what finally sort of made sense.
There's a lot of things that triggered me.
Yeah. Well, what I'm saying is, like, this is where I finally found a little bit of solace, a little bit of peace. All right, the conflict within me was like sort of resolved. Right.
All right, you were talking to our buddy Will Malt.
Yes, and me and Will Malt were talking on the phone.
We're down at talking. It's like, what happens when things go awry? We got to go back to where it started, Portsmouth, Ohio, and talk to the Spartan fans down there.
Yeah, Will Malt is our he's our brother down in Portsmouth.
How are they feeling down in Portsmouth?
Well, there's the thing is they're diehard Lions fans, yes, so they're all sick too,
because the Spartans became the
Lions.
The
Spartans became the Lions.
They actually mentioned that. I sent you a news report about that. They were talking about how they picked Honolulu Blue, and it wasn't a bad news report. I think Devin Skillian, one of the local reporters, helped put together a story anyway, but it was a story we told like 3 years ago. And I'm like, oh yeah, great. We told that story like 4 years ago.
You said, you passed me the thing. You said, I can't bear to look at this.
I was afraid to click it
because the media butchers so many the City of Champions.
Yeah, like, but they did a nice job on
and you sent it to me. And you're like, I don't know if I can read this. And I said, I can't read it either. I said, I can't read it either.
Send it to Chris.
I said, send it to Chris. Let him read it.
He'll filter it and say, no, you don't want to read that.
Yeah, send it to Chris.
Because if he said, oh no, don't read it, then we'll jump in and read it and get all angry.
I was like, I can't read that either.
All right, but so how are they so down in Portsmouth? How are they feeling?
Oh, they're tore up just like we are. They love the Lions down there, man. You know, they're Bengals fans there too. And Bengals are my second favorite team, but they're tore up down there. You know, they're so Will's calling me up. We're talking about today, and just through the process of conversation, I was talking to Will about a guy from the City of Champions season and sort of a story that that's sort of, I think, is a pretty good learning experience from this time that sort of like helped sort of soothe my thoughts on this whole matter. And I was telling Will, I go, you know what? I think if we're doing a show on that tonight, man, let's talk. I want to talk about G Walker tonight, because his story is, I think, a pretty good, like people say that life doesn't come with an instruction manual, but I think that history can sort of serve that purpose, because you see examples of the past, learning experiences, you extract them, use them for the benefit of the modern day and present. That's my entire belief in history, is that, some people say like, oh, if you don't read history, if you don't understand history, you're doomed to repeat it. But I like the optimistic side of that same coin, which is that if you learn about things that people in the past did right, and then you use them to the benefit of the modern day and future, then you're basically standing on their shoulders and building on top of what's already come before you. That's my fundamental belief in history of all history. And so I was thinking about it. I was talking to Will about G Walker, and I told him, I said, I think I should do a show on this. He said, I think so too. I think it's a great concept. Yeah. And so that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. We
should have Will on here with us.
Well, yeah, I think he's busy, but he might be listening.
We should got him. Yeah. We should have got Will on here. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, anyway.
But G Walker.
Yeah. Well, Will's always welcome to jump on. If he's on there in the chat, tell him to jump in. So, anyway, so G Walker, I think we mentioned him briefly. We're going to still do a long from history in the Tigers. I'm sure he'll get mentioned again. But
no, we did, because I remember this story. We did touch on this story. I don't know. Maybe we didn't do it on the air, but you just said,
we just mentioned like, because So just to
we didn't go deep on it, but we did talk about this.
So G Walker, his nickname is the Madman from Mississippi, right? So that sort of sets the foundation. We're not going to do like an entire biography on G Walker. I just want to touch on who he was in his career to sort of establish the concept and what we're talking about here. And so G Walker, in his day, so he played with the Tigers from 1931 to 37, and G Walker in his day was you could make a case that he was the number one fan favorite on the Tigers. Number one, he was Joe Lewis's favorite player. He was a host of like I could read you. I'm not going to read all these articles, but like there's all these different quotes where all these people are like he is a fan fascination. When he left the team in 1937, he was traded to the White Sox.
Yeah,
and when he was traded, there was a fan protest to the owner to Walter Briggs's house, and Walter Briggs announced he said it was on my he was like I'm the owner of the team, and it was at my direction that he was traded. We needed him for this. Yes, like
and to get off my lawn.
Yeah, like they were furious when they traded G Walker.
I've been in.
They were furious. They were absolutely furious when they traded G Walker. He was like he was a fan favorite. Now that being said, G Walker, he was an exceptional baseball player.
Sure,
but he was unique because you had this exceptional baseball player on one side, but you had somebody that was equally capable of the most egregious errors that anybody can imagine. Like there's, I mean, in the most sort of repeated, incidents of his screw-ups.
And summing up yesterday in the Lions, people would say those were egregious errors.
Yeah. So you have these moments of him where
we have this parallel.
He has equal sides. Like, he's brilliant baseball player, but on the other side,
glory and gooey.
Glory and yeah, GOAT. They say GOAT is like the greatest of all time, but back in the day, they'd say GOAT as far as like a heel, somebody that's screwed up. And so you have examples where he gets he'll get there's one story where Hank Greenberg gets on base with a single, and then G Walker gets on base by an error, and then G Walker tries to steal, gets caught in this rundown, right? Hank Greenberg has to run to third to get sort of advance the bases.
Yeah.
And then they throw Hank Greenberg out at third, right? Because Hank's slow, right? He's not the fastest guy.
Yeah.
And then G Walker's safe at second.
Yeah.
And then the pitcher turns around and picks him off.
Oh my God.
Get both guys out for the G.
Double play on the G.
But the most thing he was doing was he would be looking over and talking to a fan or something and get picked off of first base, or he'd take too big of a lead and get picked off of first base. In the game 2 of the 1934 World Series, he tied the game.
Yeah.
And then he tied the game.
Nice.
And then he gets on base, and literally 1 second later he gets picked off of first. So he was he tied the game with his bat and then got thrown out for some ridiculous thing. So that's the type of player he was.
Yeah.
He was equally capable. So there you had this player that was incredibly frustrating, right? He was his brilliance or his talent and everything was so much greater than then it's not even a mistake. He admitted it was mistakes. He owned up. He's like, I made a mistake. It was what it was.
Yeah.
But he was aggressive. That's the whole thing. It wasn't just, he was just screwed up or whatever. A lot of times it was just over aggressive. He was just aggressive.
Taking too big of a lead, trying to squeak that next
he was
out.
hyper aggressive, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to read a passage right here. That's a really nice summary of where I want to take this concept.
Bridge of the Death Star here. Is it too dark to read? Or
I love the Death Star, man. I can read it. I can read in the Death Star all day long.
All right.
So this is a quote. This quote is from 1933. Okay, that's what this is key to understand about the G Walker story is what they did with them. So again, so 1933. So this is of course before the city championship. It's before Mickey Cochran's not there. He comes in 1934.
Yeah.
Right. So in essence, what's happened is that G Walker's been a Tiger since 1931. And then here's 33. They're trying to control him. They're trying to tame him because they're like, okay, if we can harness the great side of G Walker, isolate it from the bad side of G Walker, then we're gonna have the best player in the league, right?
Let's wrangle this maverick in.
Yes, and so that's what this article is about. Is their attempt at reining in G Walker, which is
I've seen Top Gun. You can't ring that maverick in.
That's a great point. Yes, that's the whole point. So that's what I'm trying to get to.
I've seen all 6 Top Guns.
Well, that's what I'm trying to get to. This,
six, 7 of them.
Yes, right? I think
that's
so.
Rocky. Never mind.
Yes.
Go ahead.
So here it is. So in addition to his batting talents, Walker brought to the club an aggressive spirit. He ran the bases in a manner that reminded old timers of Ty Cobb, and he battled and snarled his way through game after game, also in the Cobb manner. Of course, Walker had his faults, plenty of them. As a fielder, he was green, untutored to the ways of big league baseball. He often threw the ball to the wrong base. Walker had a batting weakness too. He swung at bad balls. But with all of his faults, Walker remained in the Tigers lineup. He belonged there. He swung at bad balls, but he also hit them. And he hit them because of his flaming spirit, his downright aggressiveness, which seemed to enable him to do things less fiery men could not do. Walker's aggressiveness, his fiery temper frequently got him into trouble. Irritated at his own failures, Walker occasionally did things that aroused Bucky Harris, the Tigers manager before Mickey. Once or twice, Harris punished Walker, but they parted as friends, Harris and his wild man from Mississippi. When Walker arrived at the training camp this spring, the first thing he did was seek out Harris. Bucky, I'm going to do just as you say this year and be a better ball player, he said as they shook hands. I'll give you everything I've got. The other Tigers whispered, looks like G's tamed down. They said, and it did. Well, how was tamed down Walker doing? The latest American League averages show that the tamed down Walker is batting .273. That is 50 points lower than Walker, the wild man, batted last year. Is almost 100 points below the mark that Walker reached at various times last season. Walker himself, as well as those charged with the responsibility of teaching him, are to blame for Gerald's failures this year. The Tigers made a mistake in trying to tame Walker instead of trying to train him. They have converted the wild Mustang of the range into Old Dobbin. And nobody ever wins a race with Old Dobbin. When they tried to
I forgot
shape
the whole
him,
Maverick reference there.
Yes. So they tried to tame the wild man, right?
Yeah.
And they lost the
essence, the spark,
the essence of who he was.
Yes.
So that's what I was telling Will Maul about the story. You can't. So that's the whole concept here is that Dan Campbell but you were just saying this morning, and really like the similar take that a lot of people are saying, which is that's who he is.
Yeah.
Right.
That's why they're there.
That's why they're there.
Yeah.
It's like, you can't just say, well, this one time, but today,
how about today?
Just this
play
one time,
different.
just this one time.
Yeah.
Because when you start to plumb down into that aspect, the concept, I heard somebody say today, a comment today saying, well, he kicked a field goal right before the half. That was a perfect decision. And it's like, yeah, that was. But the thing about it is it's not about like it's not about him just do it like, oh, he's going to kick a field goal here, so we might as well kick a field goal over here, whatever. No, it's about like he is the man in the arena.
Yeah.
He is the one making the decisions he's the guy who everybody in the world is staring at. This is his game. If he's going to win or lose a game, it's going to be based on, like, he wants to be able to defend his decisions after the game.
Yeah.
He's like, this, I'm the one coaching the game. Everybody can be critical, of course. They can have their own beliefs about what they would have done, but he's the actual man in the arena making the decisions. Imagine if he, in the press conference, he's an honest guy.
Yeah.
Imagine if in the press conference after the game, they said to him, hey, Dan, do you regret kicking that field goal? Imagine if he did kick the field goal.
Yeah.
Right. And he says, do you regret kicking the field goal rather than go for two? Like, imagine if the game turns out differently. The Lions lost by 4 or something, right?
Yeah.
Hey, you've gone for it all year. How come you didn't go for it in that one time? And he's like, you know why? Because I was playing conservative, because I figured that's what everybody wanted me to do.
No, that's not going to happen.
You can't defend that. No, Dan, you're going to dance with who brought you. You're going to dance with who brought you. That's like he's got to be able to look himself, his team, and also be able to defend his actions. If he's the guy in the field who is responsible for those decisions, and that's what he has to be able to, like, say, defend what he's like that's the decision he made. He even he defended a press conference. He's like, I'm trying to get up on top of him. I'm trying to be aggressive. I'm trying to do our thing. And it didn't work out. Even the player said, we didn't make the plays.
Yeah.
And so that's the idea, is that, like, when I started thinking about G Walker, that's when I sort of came to peace a little bit. And this is not trying to be some kind of like Lions slappy or whatever. Like, like, oh, I'll just do whatever the Lions. I've complained about the Lions my whole life. I've talked to, I myself last night was sitting there going, what are you doing, Dan? Take the 11 points. I'm sitting there yelling at it myself. Upon further reflect, in thinking about, and there's many other examples of the same concept. Mickey Cochran himself, when his rule when dealing with the pitchers was, he said, never agree to throw a pitch that you don't want to throw. So if Mickey held down one finger for a fastball, if the pitcher didn't want to throw that pitch, then the pitcher was 100% welcome to shake Mickey off. And the pitcher because he told his pitchers, it's you on that mound. If you don't feel comfortable with what you're going to throw, then don't throw it and throw what you want to throw. I'm going to send you suggestions. And a lot of times they just nodded their head because it's Mickey Cochran behind the plate. For God's sake. But if it's not a pitch that they felt like they wanted to throw in that situation, it's on them to change to make that decision. And that's the rain Mickey got him. And that's what I'm trying to say. These people, like, it takes tremendous courage to, potentially, to go against the grain and do what, to do what you think is right, what you have to do to defend yourself and to achieve the goals you're trying to achieve. So that's what I'm saying. That's what kind of brought me some peace, was thinking about G Walker. And G Walker, of course, when Mickey came in, there's like legendary stories about Mickey's conflict with him. Yeah. But the same concept is they weren't trying to, to rein him in and tell him what to do. Mickey's conflict with him was that they just opened him back up and let him do whatever he wanted to do. And he was constantly doing the same thing, which drove Mickey insane. Yeah. But I'm not trying to say it didn't drive Mickey insane. It did. Absolutely. But there's, but there was this success woven into it. Yes. And that's what we're hoping is woven into. Yeah. But he wasn't, keeps coming. Yes. And he wouldn't even have been able to stay at the big league level if he wasn't that. Right. If he didn't have those. And the Tigers won a World Series despite his crazy errors and crazy mistakes and all this. This is a guy that carried a big stick and helped the Tigers win a World Series. This was part of the 35 in the eccentricities of G Walker. Also, what part of made this Tiger team one of the most compelling, fan favorite teams in Tiger history. This was a beloved team, and like the character in that, like, you can see these Tiger fans today going, they're the love hate where they're sitting there going crazy for him, and they even say like they wouldn't even boo them all the time. Like he wouldn't even get, a lot of times, like sometimes he would get booed, but not every time. They would say like the fans, like a lot of times they don't even boo him. They're like, it's all right, G, you'll get him next time. And they're going, what? Are you kidding me? This guy got caught off base, like doing nothing, for like the third time today or something. So he was but that's what I'm saying. It adds, there's a certain sense of the personality. Yes. Like, do you want a team that is that's just sanitized, that just does that, just that do what everybody, and that's the thing, is he's not doing what everybody's expecting him to do. So it's just, I've come to see it from a different perspective today, especially my conversation with Will, and I've found a little bit of peace. Found a little bit of peace because early, like I said, last night and this morning, I was tore up, and I'm like, man, why did he do that? So that's like sort of my, these players and these people, they're the ones in the arena, and they're the ones that have to live with the criticism and deal with that. So, it's like, it's like what you said, that's what got us there in the first place. And it's almost like, would you rather lose the game for like over aggressiveness or because we were too conservative? Right. And if I was to choose, I would think I would want to go the overly conservative, because like this, you talk about personality plus, my God, this team, they came out ripped. They were coming out tearing people up in the first half of that game. Yeah. And then it's like, then they lost it because of the overly aggressiveness, gorgeous first half. But it's like they erred because they were too maverick, they're too aggressive, and it's like they're buzzing they're like, what do you want us to do? Buzzing the control tower. Yeah, they're like, well, what did you want us to do? Dan Campbell's like, well, what did you want us to do? We're fourth down, we're going for it. And they're like, well, you could have done something else. And he's like, why? Pirates. I go, Colleen and I will look at each other. It's like Johnny Depp and Pirates of the Caribbean. Yeah. They're like, why'd you do that? He's like, pirate. Oh, yeah. He's like, I'm a pirate. Yeah. Pirate. Yeah. It's like, like, why did it? He's like, because I've been doing this. Pirate. I lead the league and go for it on fourth down. It's like who I am. So that's what I'm saying. It's like DNA. So but the other thing too that's interesting is that when Dan Campbell came in the NFL and he gave his like biting kneecap off speech like this, he went viral for the he's insane. He went viral for this. And then here this is probably the nearest equivalent of what we experienced today. Whereas like he's basically went viral for like, he went for it on 4th and 2, what is he doing? Like, and they're like, he went viral for it. And it's like, he's being Dan freaking Campbell, man. Dan freaking Campbell, man. Yeah. That's like who he is. And so like, that's what has got, if you were to say back 3 years ago and say, hey, in 3 years, the Lions, who are like at the time are the worst team in the NFL, have never won anything, are going to be in the NFC Championship, but they're going to lose from being too aggressive.
Like, I had all these pictures. What? You sent me these pictures of Walker, and I didn't put them up there.
Oh yeah, we got G Walker. Yeah,
we were talking about him.
Just
look at that big grinning.
Yeah, he's always got a big smile on his face. He's kind of he's a total character. It's a great hitting shot of him.
Big bat. Big bat. He hit like a monster.
Yeah, he's a good size.
When he was hitting, hitting.
Yeah, he's a good sized guy. And he was,
but there's a little bit of his personality coming through. I want one of them jackets.
Oh, those leather tights. Those are the classic like.
Forget that
cotton,
varsity jacket.
The cotton. That's like a varsity jacket. Yeah, but it's got leather sleeve. I mean, those are sweet. Those are totally sweet. Yeah,
that's like forget Eddie Murphy in this 67 Lions.
Yeah, those are sweet jackets.
I want one of those.
Yeah, and so but he was constantly being benched. He was constantly like.
This was us at the bar.
Here's a great
getting ready to watch the Lions.
Oh, that's a great shot. You got a good
notice the champions shirt.
Oh, you got to see.
I got the Rocket Championship.
You guys had an epic table.
So this was
it's like a Viking long table.
Yeah. It was
man, that bar. Which bar was that?
That was Twin Peaks.
Oh, where's that at?
Beers and boobs.
Really? Oh, okay, nice.
It's the girls are dressed at like scantily clad lumberjacks, short shorts and very very short small flannel shirts.
So I want to read one more. I want
over at 14 and there's a few of them around town. 1475.
It looked like you guys are having a blast.
But yeah,
I'm going to read one more quick quote.
Lydell's the manager over there. He's awesome.
Who?
Lydell is the manager. He's a great guy. Anyway,
so I want to read one more quote because this is like a little funny quote here about Mickey and dealing with G Walker here. Just kind of set it up. Right. So this is out of a book, Eldon Ocker and Sleeping. So Eldon Ocker, the pitcher for the 34 and 35 Tigers, a Submariner pitcher. He wrote a book called Sleeper Cars and Flannel Uniforms. It's like highly recommended. But this is a quote out of his book. And so he says, Walker gave Cochran fits. He was a good hitter and he was fast, but he was reckless on the bases. Mickey didn't have any rules for base runners and thought it was best to let them decide when to try to steal a base. He turned them loose and gave everyone green lights all the time. Most of the guys had sense not to abuse that privilege. Walker would try to steal bases whenever he felt like it. He went through a streak where he repeatedly got picked off first base. Walker was picked off base twice in one series in Detroit. The second time it cost us a ball game. Cochran fumed over it. He was as angry as I'd ever seen him. He held a special meeting to implement a new regulation at the start of a road trip to St. Louis. The first game after Walker had cost us the game. You guys are getting caught off base, and I'm getting tired of that, Cochran told us. There's no damn reason for it. We lost a ball game in Detroit because of it, and I've had it. It's not going to happen again. I'm making a new rule. From here on out, anybody gets caught off base, it's a $50 fine. Jack Knott, a pretty good pitcher, was on the mound for the Browns that day. Cochran got a hit in his first time up, and wouldn't you know it, Knott caught him off first base. I don't think Mickey Cochran ever had anything tougher to do on a baseball field than that particular walk back to the dugout. He came in with his head down. His face was fire engine red. He was cussing all the way back to the dugout. He was blaming Knott. He was blaming the umpire. He was blaming everybody under the sun. Boy, he was boiling mad. He put his shin guards on with such fury that he just about pulled the straps off. We didn't dare say anything. We were all too afraid to utter a sound. Dead silence. But after a while, we couldn't hold it in anymore, and we all started laughing. Finally, Mickey started laughing. He turned around and said, "You bastards, you. All right, give it to me. I deserve it." We gave it to him, and he paid his $50 fine.
Ah, there you go. Who's he pay? You got to pay me. I got to pay me the $50.
No, all the money went to the Bat Boys.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, the Bat Boys
still.
All the fine money went to the Bat Boys.
Hell yeah.
The Bat Boys cleaned
Bat Boys
up.
like, yeah.
Take the fine.
Who's going to say anything to Cochran? I don't know. Let's just hang tight, man. Just keep
so
our
what I'm
crossed.
Saying is that the thing, the element of this too is that when you overcome these things, right? When you overcome these kind of eccentricities and that, like, so if they go back next year, right?
Yeah.
And like that is going to become part of the story. It's going to make it even bigger than life that this was a different team, that this is a different coach. You know, it's like, and you say overcome it, but like, this is going to be now part of the journey, right? This is part of the story that you've got this guy who's like so aggressive. They're like, you know, I mean, that it's like, if you can take a step back and look at it potentially from the aerial view and like from a, as like a whole, rather than like, I knew they were going to get to the playoffs. I knew they were going to win the division. Like, I don't know how far they're going to get, but I was like, this is an up and coming team. And they are. And it's like looking at them and saying, like, if you can like just look at this from that sort of perspective and say, like, this is who they are. And once you come to realize that, you're like, it's not that you can't disagree, you know, be like, I disagree with the decisions. Like, I wouldn't have done that, Jamie. I would not have taken the points.
No, but
Dan Campbell's not me
all day long.
Yeah, but he's not me.
All day
and
long.
I'm not the guy on the field.
Dan Campbell is Dan
that's
Campbell.
running this hyper aggressive team.
And I want Dan Campbell to be Dan Campbell again next year.
These guys are a bunch of, and that's saying that that's what I'm trying to. That's really what I'm trying to get at is, and the realization I've sort of had is this: is that my sort of fear coming out of this is not that, oh my God, I hope Dan Campbell doesn't cost us another game with some decisions like that. That's not my thing. My fear is that the criticism is going to be so heavy that it's going to make him sort of rethink who he is and I don't think so either. But I'm saying if there is a fear over this, my fear is that the only fear I would have is that he would, go, hell, I should probably go for field goals more, like that's like, I don't want him to change. And that's what sort of has brought me peace is I don't want him to change. Don't change Dan Campbell.
I want to hear that speech at the beginning of next year.
Well, we will. That's because that's where my mindset's at.
Don't
change, Dan Campbell, don't change. Be yourself, man. We love you. We love this team. And my God, what a thrilling year this was.
Yeah. There's a fun little sentiment, and it's attributed to Aiden Hutchinson. I'm not sure because it's on a Facebook page.
Yeah, it's been bouncing all over Facebook.
And they're saying, Aiden Hutchinson is so articulate.
Yeah, we don't know who wrote
this, but it sounds
so good.
Because it's on a Facebook page, but the Facebook page is run by fans of defensive ends.
Yes, we have no idea who wrote it, but it's a very well written thing. If anybody finds out,
if Aiden did write it, I love it, but it happened like moments.
But there's no direct attribution to him,
and it went up like right after the game.
Yeah,
and I'm like, I don't think he had time to do this.
No, but
I love.
But you want to read it in the historical record so people that listen to the show in the future can hear.
I do.
A pretty poetic, thought about at this moment where the entire Detroit nation is like
on the Aiden Hutchinson fan page. It says, "You won't find tears in Detroit. If you want excuses, you won't hear them coming out of Ford Field. As hard as today's loss was, it's not a definition of the Detroit Lions culture. It's a testament to how far we've come and how far we can go. It is the city's perseverance of hardworking people is what makes this state great. A city born in steel, diesel, blood. It will not let a moment like this hold them back. In a city like this, in a culture like this, you learn that failure is just an opportunity to improve. A moment that Michigan men don't shy away from." And he's a Michigan boy.
So that's why we think he might have written it or something. Yeah.
He's a U of M guy. It's a moment that Michigan men don't shy away from. You take a look at these college boys down the road. It took them a couple trips to hell and disappointment to bring glory back to Michigan. Greatness is a journey, not a light switch. It may take a few more days in the dark to see the light, but the Lions will get there. Together, we'll restore the roar. Romans chapter 5, verse 3-4 says, "Not only that, but we rejoice in our suffering, knowing that suffering produces endurance. Endurance produces character. Character produces hope, and hope does not put us to shame." So
I love it. Yeah,
go Lions.
Yes, go Lions.
And then there's an ad for sweatshirts. So it's like, and buy your hoodie here. So that's why I don't think it's him.
Well, it could have been somebody copied and pasted it or something.
But it doesn't lead to his website. Because he does sell sweatshirts and stuff, but it leads to a different website to buy a sweatshirt. But I love that sentiment. It's not a light switch, right?
No, and the thing I say in my first book, the championship is not. You're not like when you like. What is the nature of a championship?
I hope Aiden
a championship.
Wrote it, but I don't think
a championship is not simply like what is it? Like I say, a championship is a celebration of the fortitude that it took to get there.
Yes,
like that. You're celebrating like the hard time, all the difficulties, the overcoming the obstacles, all that, and finally reaching that podium. If it was easy, then it wouldn't even be worth anything.
Yeah.
And so, like I say, so this like if the Yankees won the championship, like the World Series, like every year for 100 years, it wouldn't mean anything. It was just a regular yearly appearance. But that's what I'm saying. So this it was gut wrenching, especially because I was it was such an awesome ride. And and I get that's what I'm saying.
So good. I'm looking forward to that.
So
opening
I hope
speech
that everybody
next year.
rallies around Dan Campbell and says, you know what? The first day we struggled with this, but now we're good and we love you. Let's move this thing forward.
Chris says he feels that Campbell and Cochran cut from the same cloth.
Totally
a lot of alliteration in there.
Totally agree.
But and so that's why I'm looking forward to that speech again next year.
Yes, definitely.
To what with his opening remarks for training season and just where he thinks the team's going to go. Because again, there's we said we're not sure if Aiden was he's attributed with this, but we're not sure if he wrote it. And there's all these quotes today about Campbell saying, well, this was as far as we're going to get.
No, that's not him. I can't imagine him say that was it, boys, we're done. It was a good try.
This is as close as we'll ever get.
Pack it in. It's time to rebuild this team and start from scratch again. Yeah. I don't think think that would ever come out of his mouth.
Yeah, I know. It's
I think it might have been taken slightly out of context on that. So that was really the story I wanted to tell, was this story about about G Walker. There's another brief story too you can mention about Bill Rogel, who was their shortstop, who when he first came up to the majors, he was a switch hitter, and he came up with the Boston Red Sox, and he was a better right-handed hitter than he was a lefty, and so the Red Sox wanted him to hit exclusively right-handed, so that because the Fenway Park has the green monster in left field. And so the monster is a beautiful target for right-handed hitters because they can bang the ball off the wall and get doubles every time they hit the wall. So they wanted him to be an exclusively right-handed hitter, and he was terrible. And he was he always said, I'm a switch hitter, and that's what helps me see the ball better when I'm batting left-handed. Even though I'm not as good left-handed, I get more into my groove when I'm hitting from both sides of the plate. And they're like, no, if you want to play for us, you're going to be right-handed exclusively. And he was terrible. Yeah. He was terrible. And so when he came to the Tigers, they said, yeah, you want to be a switch hitter, knock yourself out, just be good.
What's he do?
And he went both.
Gets on base.
He started playing. They allowed him to go back to switch hitting, and that's when he started becoming the Bill Rogel, which was the starting shortstop for the 1935 World Series champion Tigers. So that's what they he's got an airport drive named after him. That's. So that's what made Bill Rogel the star. And so again, him being himself, being what it is and it ties. I can sit here and list numerous examples. You have a guy named Andres Galarraga, who was a first baseman for the Expos, and he was this monster hitter, just a masher with Montreal. And the Expos managers at the time were like, "Hey, Andres, if you choke up on the bat a little bit and you angle towards the plate a little bit more, you can hit more balls to right field. You can hit more home runs to the opposite field." And he started trying to do what they were telling him because he's a young kid. Yeah. And so he tried to do what they were telling him. And then it threw off his swing. And they said, he even said, and it completely destroyed him. Yeah. For 6 years. He eventually got released from the Expo, or something. They didn't re-sign with him. His career numbers went way down the toilet. Mm-hmm. He played for St. Louis for a brief moment, didn't do anything there. And then it wasn't until he went to Colorado that he finally, which was an expansion team, that was his last chance, that he finally picked it back up. But he's saying years later in an interview, he said, my original thesis for baseball, for hitting, he's like, I think he came through from Venezuela. And he said, he goes, when I started playing baseball, when I, from a kid all the way through the major leagues, my hitting theory was see ball, hit ball. Yeah. See ball, hit ball. It was that simple. Yeah. But then as soon as people tried to retool his swing and tell him you should do this and that and tinker with him,
how much greater you'll be.
Destroyed his career. Yeah. For what? So he can hit more balls to the right field? What the hell does it matter if he hits the balls to the right or left, as long as it goes out? Who cares? And so that's the same concept. Is
got to keep the fans over there happy.
Yes.
What?
So that's the thing. It's the same concept, is that if these people that are in the arena doing what they do, especially if they're successful, if they're successful, man, they're like there's a Teddy Roosevelt has a speech where it's, look, if we're not going to read it here, but look it up. It's one of the greatest speeches of all time. It's called The Man in the Arena. It's who's anybody else to judge the person who's actually the doer of deeds in the arena? Yeah. They're the ones who are blood and sweat and tears and working at that specific task. They're the ones that take all the heat. They're the ones that pay for it by losing their job. So that's what I mean. That he's the guy in the arena, and I'm not trying to change him. Yep. I'm not trying. I would have done it differently, but I'm not the guy in the arena. Right. So
All right, so we're 3 weeks away from the first game of spring training.
Yeah, it's coming up.
Spring break.
Yeah.
So 3 weeks away from the first game of the spring training. So that's good news too. And the Lions will be back on the gridiron before you know it.
Yeah, the draft's coming up. I already watched my first Lions draft episode today. They're talking about guys the Lions can get in the draft already. There's already the mock drafts are already in force.
I love the City of Champions feel that's in this town.
Yeah.
And after we get over our hangover for a day or two, that I think that feeling will be back.
I wanted to say one last thing, which is that this moment right here, this gut-wrenching thing, there's another parallel, which is that in 1934, when the Tigers went to the Tigers came out of literally nowhere, and they went all the way to the 7th game of the World Series and lost. So this feeling we're having right here, like we said it on the last show, this is what it feels like to be a winner. This is what it felt like in the City of Champions, how exciting it was. Multiply that times 10. That was City of Champions. Well, this is what it felt like for the 1934 Tigers, if not even worse.
And did Cochran put his tail between his legs and run away? No, he came out and he said, "We're going to win it this year."
In that game 7 of that World Series was absolutely disastrous. They were making errors all over the field. They couldn't get the ball where the lick. I mean, there was So it was the same concept where they just it ended with the Medwick incident where Medwick spiked Marv Owen at third base, and then the fans were throwing debris on the field, and they had it was just an ugly event. And it was just they had to live all year with the just total disaster of that game 7 of the World Series and wondering, the entire media is going, well, the Tigers are just a flash in the pan. There's no way they're going to replicate what they did last year. And so they kind of caught everybody off guard. And that's, that's sort of the parallel this year. I mean, I think people have higher expectations for the Lions than they did the 34 Tigers after that. But the results are just as, devastating. Where you're you came so close, in their case, they were half a game away from winning the World Series. So this is another parallel. And of course they came back in 35 and the entire city, every sport won championships. They didn't even know about Joe Louis at that point. Joe Louis came out and did his thing too. So, so it led to bigger and better things. So, so hopefully that's some next year for us too.
All right. We got lots more to talk about. Detroit City of Champions. Like, subscribe, leave a comment, do all those podcast things in all the podcast places. And, Radio Cobra Detroit, right? You can find our, I do the music format there on there. Wiki. I play in the
DJ
the music. Yeah. So, there's some links to, cause it's usually Saturday night, 6 to midnight. Is when it's happening live on Radio Cobra, but you can check it out on the RadioCobraDetroit.com. You can find the Hot Tub Saturday Night DJ Jamie James mix there of awesome retro alternative stuff, and you can also find the City of Detroit podcast. They've linked the podcast into the Radio Cobra Detroit website.
Cool.
So yeah, see, it's on there with all the other.
That's awesome, man.
It's all the other pieces and parts that's in there. Anyway, so shouting out to my Radio Cobra Detroit peeps.
Yeah.
And but wherever you're listening to it or watching it, you could be watching Facebook video, you could be watching YouTube video, listening to the audio version of the podcast. Wherever you are, just kind of put a little smiley face next to it, and we appreciate you. And we're gonna do it all again very, very soon. It's Detroit City of Champions, the podcast. Clicking the wrong mouse. All right. Bye.
Hit the button.